I love hearing everyone's story of how God has uniquely prepared them to be in this place at this time. It never ceases to amaze me, and all the different areas that people can receive training from out of iTech are there's a handful of them, 5 or 6, I think, and you do the medical training. Can you explain a little bit about why we do medical training, what the needs are that you see overseas? Why is medical training important?
I'll let you answer that.
Okay. Well, medical missions has always been a part of missions almost since the very beginning. So there's always been a, lack of a better term, obvious
Sure.
need for that. And I think people have often seen that as just as a good way to share the love of Christ in a very practical way. And so before I came to iTech, I've been doing medical missions since I was a medical student. And at some point after medical school and long before I came to iTech, I kind of reached the point where just saw the need, because it's like when you go and do a medical missions, it's like more and more people come every day. So your lines are actually longer when you leave than when you first got there.
Right.
And so I just began to feel guilty and began to think, are we really, one, changing anything?
Mm-hmm.
And even, I think more importantly than changing anything, are we changing anything for the good? Are we actually making people, again, this was not the intention, but were we actually setting people up to be worse? Because now you've set the expectation of some people have gotten care, some haven't. And so there's that competition, or that sense of no longer are we all the ones with, say a skin infection,
Sure.
if that's what you're going to be treated with. Now some are better and some aren't. But even in terms of treating diseases, in that short amount of time, okay, we can give them medicine for so long a time. We might be able to cure an infection for a little bit, but they're going to get sick again. We've not done anything to help prevent that whole process. And then it's like when we come, a lot of times what I've seen, it's in competition almost, where the mission team actually eclipses the church, the pastor. And so it almost devalues the faithful servants that have been there and serving, because now all the focus is on the mission team. It's kind of that sense about people are going to get sick, but what have we really changed? And so long before I came to iTech, I was beginning to think, okay, I'm done with medical missions. I don't know how else to do that besides to train. But and I think as I read The Great Omission, which was a book that Steve wrote a number of years ago, it just really echoed my own thoughts and my own heart about things.
Right.
And to hear, as he was talking about how the Wadani themselves expressed their frustration about those that were not treated, and about the frustration that people get sick, but the missionaries aren't always there.
Right.
And so that's kind of what got my thinking to going, the training where we can go and spend time and little by little begin to equip them to take care of a lot of basic health care. Yeah. Not to make them nurses or doctors, but so they can provide the care. They're in those areas that's home for them, because even in those countries, say for example Ecuador, each medical student when they graduate has to do a year of what they call rurals. Now people are like people all across the world. Doesn't matter if you're from the U.S. or whatever country. You want to stay where your friends are, your family, where it's comfortable. And so people were used to the city, the comforts of the city. They didn't want to have to go be in the jungle for a year where there was no comforts and things. And so it made perfect sense to me when the focus is to train people that's their home. And they actually prefer that setting. That's where they're comfortable with. And
Sure.
so for them, it wasn't a hardship. And they already know the culture. They know the language. They know how to get around and how to communicate with the other tribes and things. So it just seemed a perfect combination of things.
Yeah, it definitely seems that way. So can you tell us a little bit about specifically who are you training on these trips that you take overseas? Who receives that training, and is there any sort of requirements that these trainees have to meet to be able to participate in an iTech medical training?
As far as medical background, there's no requirements.
Okay.
iTech partners with Christian organizations around the world, And who we train are Christ followers, usually who are very active sharing the gospel and looking for a new avenue to open doors to spread the gospel. And where we've been training recently are places where it's hard to get in and out of. So medical training is very important.
Sure.
And most people in a community are looking for relief, medical relief. And the people we train would be the first ones that they come to. Or when the person that we train make home visits and they're taking someone's blood pressure, they're, teaching them how to make clean water and how to keep their child from having over and over episodes of diarrhea, then, they're building trust and relationships and also teaching and bettering the health of their community, but also sharing the gospel.
Yeah.
And that's our goal, not only to give them medical information, but information that would help them build trust and share the gospel.
There's such a natural connection between addressing someone's physical needs and their spiritual needs.
Yeah,
And
so true.
Scripture is full of these parallels and examples. And it makes sense, too, to train the indigenous Christ followers, because then they already know their language and their context and what the needs are with their own people in a way that we never can.